credits! We did it! Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Alright, first things first. The bottom center of the screen says that we've beaten 32 games in 2024 and 479 since we started doing this in 2020. Those numbers are lies. We've now beaten 33 games in 2024 and 480 since we started doing this in 2020. Let's go. All right. Let's talk about Link's Awakening. So, I could not help but compare this to Link to the Past as I played it for two reasons. Number one, the obvious is this game is clearly based on the framework of Link to the Past. It's got a lot of the same abilities. It's got a lot of the map even looks similar. It's very similar. It's like a Game Boy version of Link to the Past, right? So obviously for that reason, but also because I'm playing the games in order, and Link to the Past was the last one I played. So it's impossible not to make that comparison, right? And Link to the Past is not ranked as high as it deserves, because that's one of the best games of all time. And while I did enjoy it, there were some things about it that I found to be frustrating, some quality of life stuff that just wasn't there in the early SNES era, that kind of thing. And so, I didn't rank in the top 50 because, it's just, those whole older games are harder for me. I had to use a walkthrough like a dozen times to figure out where to go in that game, and yada yada. This game's different. I want to, before I say anything else, I do want to clarify one thing. There is no doubt that when it comes to objective quality, that Link to the Past is a better game, even considering the remake, because it laid the framework for this kind of game, right? And it's a deeper, richer experience, the Link to the Past game. So before I say anything else, I just want everyone to understand that I don't think this is objectively better than Link to the Past. However, most of this probably is to thank the remake for. There were some clear, I don't know, I never played the original Link's Awakening, but there were some things that were very clearly, or at least I assume, were added in the remake, and it was a lot of quality of life stuff. Some like fast travel options, hints, ways to, mostly those two things. I highly doubt that the fast travel worked the way that it did in the original. And the way that it gave you pretty consistent hints, I thought was really nice. It made for a much less frustrating time. There was one dungeon the next to last dungeon that really, really frustrated me because it was just really confusing. But outside of that one dungeon, I really, really had a great time just figuring it out on my own. I used to walk through 2 times. One time was like, actually, no, I'm sorry, 3 times. 2 of those times were times that once I looked it up, I was like, oh, I should have known that. Because there was like a spot on the map that I didn't even realize I hadn't explored yet. And I don't remember what the other one was, but it was a very similar, like, oh yeah, I was already told about that. I should have remembered that. And then there was one time that I looked it up where it was like, oh, I'm glad I looked that up because I would never have figured that out on my own. But when I played A Link to the Past, there were like a dozen of those times where it was like, I never would have figured that out on my own. I'm so glad I had to walk through. I'm so glad I looked this up. I would have wasted so much time trying to figure this out. I don't like using walkthroughs because it robs you of the enjoyment of figuring it out on your own, right? So each of those 3 times, I tried to figure out what to do for at least 30 minutes, 45 minutes before I gave up, right? So, for the most part, I tried really hard. Right? So, what I'm trying to say is that it is not a foregone conclusion that I'm going to rank this lower than Link to the Past, because it was a much more gratifying time when it came to figuring out the game on my own. And I have to assume that I have to lend thanks to the remake for that. And yes, of course, there were other things about the remake that were nice. It was very pretty. The game is a gorgeous game. Link to the Past needs this remake. This treatment. I have to assume that they're working on that. But but all that aside, the game looked gorgeous. It played gorgeous. It was a beautiful world. It was very well crafted as a kind of a shot-for-shot remake, but they added in some extra stuff and changed the camera angle. And it was just a lot of stuff that made it play much, much better, I assume, than the original. And so it was a really fun. The remake did a really good job of making things weren't easy. I had to use a lot of brain power to figure some of these things out, but I very rarely had to resort to a walkthrough. And a couple of those times, most of those times were because I wasn't paying enough attention. So whereas when it was in Link to the Past, when I was looking stuff up, I was like, I never would have figured that shit out. It was a lot of that. That only happened once in this game. So I'm going to have a lot of thinking to do. And, as far as like all of the wonderful things about Link to the Past, there are a few things that Link to the Past does that this game just doesn't do. Like all that stuff where you're switching dimensions and stuff in Link to the Past. That is like super cool part of the game where everything changes, and then suddenly you have another map to explore. This game doesn't have that kind of depth, So again, that really is a very cool moment that is definitely weighs the scales for Link to the Past when I think about like where I'm going to rank it. But the quality of life stuff and how easy this game was easy is not the right word, how gratifying this game was to try and get through on my own is considerable. So I'm not saying I'm going to rank it higher. I don't remember where I ranked Link to the Past. I'm just saying that I think it might be close. And I might rank it higher. Link to the Past is ranked 226 all time. Anyone that's thinking about objective value is going to think that's a travesty. I mean, I have that ranked under like Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. Like anyone that looks at my rankings that's thinking about objective value is going to like spit their food out looking at that. But it's important to remember that it's not about objective value. And actually, while I was still really able to appreciate a lot about Link to the Past, I mean, that's higher, honestly, than most of my retro game playthroughs. That's pretty high for a Super Nintendo game. So it's not like I'm shitting on it. But I struggle with retro games because they don't. You have to really invest a lot of attention and time in order to get through those games on your own. And I just don't have that kind of time, and I don't have that kind of patience, and it's not worth the payoff. Honestly, if I have to spend 6 hours to figure something out that I can look up in 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, maybe, but any longer than that, the benefit is no longer worth the cost. Not to me. So that's why that game isn't nearly as high as something like, Breath of the Wild is quite high. It's like 60 or 70 or something. So, but that game's got a lot of quality of life stuff. It's like, it's designed that you don't have to pull up a walkthrough or spend 150 hours trying to figure everything out. So anyway, I loved this game. I really, really liked it. I'm really glad they remade it because I doubt I would have enjoyed it as much if I was just playing the Game Boy version. I can pretty much guarantee I would not have enjoyed it nearly as much. I probably would have been really frustrated with it. There would have been a lot of times that I looked up a walkthrough, I bet. And so I'm really glad that I played this version. And it's this version that makes me wonder if maybe I enjoyed it more than Link to the Past. And I don't think that's crazy. It's just, you just have to look at it from my perspective. I'm just ranking things based on how happy they made me. And Link to the Past made me very happy in a lot of places, but it also made me very upset and very frustrated, especially, oh my God, toward the end. Jesus Christ, I forgot all about that. Where I had to go back and get the Master Sword or the better Master Sword or whatever. That was a nightmare, man. I was pissed. I didn't get a lot of that in this game. So, I really enjoyed it. Okay, I'll shut up now. But I really, really, really enjoyed this game. It was worth $60. I had to pay $60 for this game. And it was worth it. That speaks volumes. That's part of I was supposed to play this game a long time ago. That's part of why waited so long. It's like, I just don't want to spend $60 on a game that's 5 years old already, and it's a remake. Anyway, last order of business. I don't actually... Do I know how to delete software on Zelda? This is the part of the video that I would normally say, well, it's been fun, Zelda Link's Awakening, but we are now going to delete you from our console and never play you again. And then now we are going to do that. Thank you, Link's Awakening. It's been fun. Bye.